What's up, guys? So we got some interesting news that came out yesterday. I'm interested to know whether or not you think it'll change anything, because that's a more important question. Politically, yeah.
No.
So, okay.
Well,
All right, well, there's your answer. All right, video over. Anyway.
There we go.
So it looks like a Trump indictment is imminent.
Yeah.
So I'll have Crystal give some more of the details, but it's not like the issue that it's over is one of the ones where it's like, even if an indictment is imminent, even if a conviction is imminent, it's like slap on the wrist type stuff, right?
Yes. So this has to do with the old Stormy Daniels hush money payment, which I really had to reach into the deep recesses of my memory to gather all of the details of this one. But so this is with the Manhattan DA, Alvin Bragg. And basically the reason we know an indictment is imminent is because they effectively told Trump's lawyers that he needs to come and testify before the grand jury this week. Kitty just showed up. And that is apparently a sign that a person is about to be criminally indicted. So there's two charges relevant to this, and they have to kind of put them together in what was described in the article I read as a novel application of legal theory in order to make this into a felony versus a misdemeanor. One of them has to do with the payment itself. I don't remember if it was wire fraud, some sort of fraud type of thing with regard to the payment.
Because it was used with campaign funds. They paid her with campaign funds, which was the whole genesis of why it's a crime.
So that's the other part of it is a campaign finance violation, because they're saying that this was like an undisclosed contribution to his campaign. So so anyway, that is you put those two together and it becomes a felony. It's there's a possibility of, I think, at max 4 years in prison, but there's also not a requirement that there's any prison time. So that's what we know about it.
And I believe Michael Cohen was the one who delivered on the payment. So
Correct.
they're probably using him, to testify against Trump, and that's how they're going to get him.
Right. And I mean, he's obviously helpful for making the case against Trump because he's telling them, what happened and et cetera. But he's also not the most credible witness because he himself, was caught lying, etc. So they'll use his own character to try to undermine whatever his testimony is.
So what's a worst case scenario for Trump and what's a best case scenario for Trump in your estimation?
You're talking about in terms of
legally? Of punishment. So we already know he's getting indicted, foregone conclusion that's going to happen, right?
Yeah, worst case is 4 years. I have a hard time imagining they would actually hit him with that. Best case is he gets off altogether.
Okay, best case is he gets off altogether. He's not found guilty, whatever. He does the whole, exonerated thing that he did after the 2 impeachments.
Right. There's also a chance that, he's found guilty, but it's like a fine and he doesn't actually, serve any prison time.
Can you imagine any scenario where it's like 6 months in prison or a year in prison, or do you think that's so unlikely as to be like, no way?
I don't know.
I mean, part of the issue is, of all the different investigations into him, I feel like this one has the most potential to backfire.
Yeah.
Where, you have the headlines of, it's an indictment. Well, then you rile up the right-wing base to support him even more. If you convict him and it's just a fine, it's like, he gets to play the victim game when there's really nothing but a slap on the wrist to him, so he gets even more support.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're playing into his hands with this particular one. There are other cases where I feel like, there's there that's way more serious. For example, the Georgia case where they find the 11,000 votes.
Right.
Like, there's more upside to that potentially because it seems more serious.
Right.
Seems like there might be more of a punishment associated with it. Even the stuff, which I don't even know if they're looking into it anymore, about how they basically defrauded their own supporters to the tune of $250 million when they were raising money for Stop the Steal, and then none of that money went towards Stop the Steal. That strikes me as way more serious and potentially like a worse punishment, where even a best case scenario for him is not that good. You know what I mean? But this is one of those where it's like it could easily backfire.
I feel the same way. And I also think it's one where he could more easily make the case that this was political. Alvin Bragg was elected to this position, with, in part people expected him to go after Trump. So I think he'll make that case. And I also just feel like from a political perspective, all the Stormy Daniels stuff people have kind of processed
Snooze
it and
fest,
moved on from it. And yeah, January 6th and trying to steal a national election feels a lot more germane to the current moment.
Yeah.
Now, there may also be indictments coming with regard to January 6th and the fake elector scheme in particular, not to mention the whole classified document situation. That one has also become more politically complex given the fact that Joe Biden also had classified documents. Now, of course, I'm not saying it's exactly the same situation, but it did create sort of muddy the waters and make that one a little bit less potent than it was previously.
And Trump has already gotten some slaps on the wrist for illegal business practices. He's already been fined in at least one case. I think it was $1 million or more.
But that was about his business versus him personally, right?
It was about his business, right? So he's not as specifically liable for it.
Right.
And it wasn't the civil case brought by the New York Attorney General, Letitia James. It was a different one where the result came out and he has to pay like $1 million or something like that.
Yeah.
But any other political figure, if they had an indictment coming, it's like you want to pound the gavel and say this person's done.
Yeah.
But with Trump, at least with this indictment in particular, I fear that that's not what's going to happen.
I kind of feel the same way about
So here's a good question.
all of them, to be honest with you. Like they don't, in my mind, they're not going to pack the political punch that they really should have, and that I expected them to just a couple months ago.
So here's a question though. Fox News is already pivoting towards DeSantis and trying, albeit in a sad way, to like decouple from Trump.
Yeah.
Does this give them an opportunity to really fully like, we're just not going to talk about Trump anymore at all, and we're going to try to blow DeSantis even more?
I don't think so.
So you think it's more likely that this will make them fall in line even more?
Yeah, I think they'll feel the need to defend him. I mean, what really came...
They're so stupid.
I mean, that's what happened after the Mar-a-Lago raid. That's what has always happened. And you can see in all those text messages that came out, I mean, they're completely captured by their audience.
True.
So if they're saying something their audience doesn't want to hear and they get some negative feedback, they'll fall in line with their audience.
Total audience capture,
Yeah.
You're right. But it's funny because you see the instinct of like Tucker was like, he was saying, I can't wait to not talk about this guy anymore. I don't want to talk about him anymore. I hate him with a passion. He's a demonic force, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you've had 3 opportunities already to just don't talk about him at all, just move forward, and you haven't done it.
Everybody,
which, to your point, is the audience capture.
Everybody is just hoping that he will go away and that they won't have to do anything to make that happen.
Right.
And it's not going to work out that way. I mean, there will have to be some sort of organized effort to actually take him on if you want to dislodge him as head of the Republican Party.
Final question. Does this make him, does he have an even worse chance now in a general election because he has an indictment on his record? Potentially it'll be a conviction, fine, something, right? Does that also sort of add to the mix of like, you're kind of a really weak general election candidate? What do you think?
I felt more confident about that a few months ago. Now I don't feel confident that it really is going to make... I definitely don't think it makes a lot of difference in the Republican primary. Maybe it is a problem in a general election, but do I feel like confident that Biden could 100% defeat him even if he has an indictment? No, I don't feel confident about that at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't ask you if you're 100% confident because that's like silly.
Yeah.
But I would say, I was just kind of asking relative to where you think he is now, does an indictment make him in a general election
an indictment
worse or better?
Yeah, I think it's worse. In a general election, it's worse. But I would still put it as like if it's him versus Biden, at like a jump ball.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario, isn't it? Because at the same time that Trump is kind of showing those old instincts and that he knows how to do good politics, like going to East Palestine and saying the stuff about Medicare and Social Security and attacking his opponents viciously and like making that the duh position. At the same time that's going on, there's always the potential for like the self-destructive stuff too, because he's Trump.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see those two things kind of clash. I'm with you in that, yeah, he's definitely a favorite for the primary, but I do think he still has a massive uphill battle for the general. Because I think that in the same way in 2016, there was almost like a silent Trump support going on with the general population. I do feel more now like it's a silent Trump, like, we're done, let's just move on type deal.
Maybe.
So anyway, we'll see. We're all speculating on that part. But the important part is Trump, imminent indictment coming. And after that, it's up in the air. Is it going to be a fine? Is it going to be nothing? Is it going to be... the jail time. I agree with you. I think it's hard to imagine jail time just because he's a former president. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're in like a special class.
And they had to like kind of cobble something together to even make this a
Right,
felony.
yeah, it wasn't like very straightforward. Like there are other cases that I think are more straightforward. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yes,
So-
I agree.
Anyway, there you have it.